Hey,
What's up, Becca?
it is so good to see your face.
It is good to see your face too.
I thought I was never going to get to see you this week.
I know, it was crazy.
You have had one hell of a week, and I don't care what you say. You obviously have your shit together to be on and recording with me right now. I don't even know half the stuff that happened. I wrote down notes to talk to you about. They say tree, COVID, plus more. So you ready? Lay it on me. Did you have your shit together this week?
Yes, I have my shit together this week. So much shit together. There was some stuff that I did not get done, but there was some very important, crazy change of plan stuff that had to take place. So it's okay.
Well, I just want to say you had such a crazy week that when we talked the other day, you offhandedly mentioned, like it wasn't even an important detail, your son's graduation, which is kind of a monumental milestone for both you and your son.
Fifth grade graduation.
Oh, you were talking about Sammy's graduation, not Isaac's.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why it was offhand. Like Isaac's would have been a much better, bigger story, but
okay.
Sammy's graduation from 5th grade. So he's moving to a different school.
Right. Middle school. I mean, it's still a big deal, but it's not what I thought it was.
But yeah.
Okay.
It's not the big deal, but yeah.
So let's start there. What did you find out on Friday had happened on Thursday at the graduation?
Well, what had happened is that so I went to the graduation with my co-parents, my ex-husband and his wife, and it was very cool of them to be there because they're like an hour away. And we're all fairly on top of the COVID situation. We'll wear masks in public places with lots of people, but we've all gotten a little lazy with it. But it was graduation. There were a lot of people. We were wearing masks when we were close to people and taking them off when people weren't too close. Anyway, we may have been a little cavalier about the mask wearing. Not Sam, the only child that went on the stage to get his diploma wearing a mask.
Aww.
Because that's my boy.
Good boy, Sammy.
Oh, Sam didn't need any persuading. The OCD is strong with him. So he's
like my River. I don't think River has taken their mask off since March of 2020.
Oh.
I think they probably just lifted up to brush their teeth maybe and then put it back down.
Really save a lot of money on like lipstick and stuff,
Yeah. Not that I don't know that River's a big lipstick wearer anymore. I think they're going by he, him now, but I'm sticking with they, them till they correct me. But yeah. Not that he, him can't wear lipstick, but I just think for River, that's not it anymore. That's not the thing they're looking to do to their face.
Not their thing, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sammy's a connoisseur of hand sanitizers as well. He's very, I think I may have told you, he got in trouble once for like squirting hand sanitizer at kids who got within 6 feet.
Yes, I remember that.
He got in trouble for that on more than one occasion. I'll just say that. But yeah,
I love him. So, he's a tiny miniature Mr. Monk.
He is Monk / Sheldon Cooper, but like crammed into an almost 11-year-old body. Like that's just and he'll backtalk adults like they are, like they're his equal. He doesn't get that yet. It's something else, let me tell you. Anyways, so Friday morning, my co-parents called me. I was home, Isaac was home, my 18-year-old, because his last final and last day of school was really Thursday. Friday was like you could go to school if you wanted to, and Sam weirdly enough wanted to because they were going to show the Princess Bride, and he's like, I want to see the Princess Bride in a place I've never seen it before. I'm like,
oh,
okay,
I love him.
And he's like, and I want to give out my information to my school friends so that we can meet outside of school. I'm like,
oh my gosh,
I support you. And he's like, I'm going to say goodbye to my teachers even though they don't respect me very much. I'm like,
okay,
right, buddy.
I just think that he is both I mean, if it's true, if he's true if it's that they don't respect him very much, which I mean, shame on them. But if it's true, he is insightful and forgiving at the same time. He is like, they don't
Sometimes.
respect me, but I still want to say goodbye to them. Like, what a great little guy. I mean, he's probably not that little anymore, but I still picture him as like a tiny little toddler. Like I saw him last time. I know he's not.
Oh, I was impressed because normally he's kind of a grudge holder, but I guess he was like, it's the end of the year and I want to go out with good feelings. And I'm like, that's very mature, Sam.
Wow. Well,
I
you're doing
know.
something right. Kudos to you and your co-parents.
Yes, we will accept those kudos. So the co-parents called Isaac because Isaac and his dad were going to take like a happy 18th birthday trip together, dad and son bonding, and they were gonna go to Colorado and like go see some archaeological sites, and it was gonna be really rad. And they had the whole thing planned out, and they were gonna leave Friday afternoon. They were supposed to fly out. So Isaac was gonna drive he and Sam down to the co-parents' house a little early. But they called and they were like, we have some news.
Oh no.
We have COVID and
oh, no.
we are positive, and also we are a little bit miserable. And so it is,
man,
we got to cancel the trip. And yeah, so that kind of changed a lot of plans because I was not planning to have the kids here this weekend. I was going to work at the Renaissance Festival. It's the last weekend at the Georgia Renaissance Festival. And I usually get there like 9:45, 10 o'clock. Well, that's my goal anyway. Usually get there a little later than that, but anyways, like so usually I'm there from like 10-ish in the morning until like 7-ish at night, and it was going to be Saturday, Sunday, Monday because Memorial Day we're working too. And if the kids are going to be home, I was like, I don't have food because I wasn't planning on human beings being in the house. And I don't know how you guys are going to be occupied because I got to work. And oh, maybe I can't work because I've been exposed to COVID. Oh, shoot, and
oh gosh.
Scramble. Right. And so so anyways, and on top of everything else, like, I'm also sorry for my co-parents because
of course
they don't want to be sick. Nobody wants to be sick. And they were really looking forward to that trip. Like Dale was going to be with Sammy all weekend and he was going to swim in the pool, and Sam was really excited about that. And, Aaron and Isaac were to take this big trip and they were really excited about it. But Isaac took it like a champ. He was offered to fly out by himself and hang out with his uncle, and his uncle is cool, but it was supposed to be a Dad and Isaac trip. So Isaac was like, nah, I'm gonna stay and help Mom.
Oh, what a good kid. You have really good kids.
It's true. They're really good. They're very good. Yes, I made them with my body. Yeah, it's true. So
with your body and your parenting skills.
Well, that as well, but my body did a lot of work. Still does, but
yeah, a lot of people don't know parenting is a full contact sport.
Full contact sport, man. Oh my gosh, if I get farted on one more time, anyway. Or a lot, Sammy, Sammy's so funny because one minute he's telling me about the properties of hydrogen, and the next minute he's like, hey Mom, guess what? And I'm like, if you burp in my face one more time, you will have no tech for the rest of the day.
Oh, and they were talking about their balls a lot this week. I saw on a Facebook.
Oh my God, so much talk about balls. Okay, so there was no school. So there was no school on Tuesday so that we could vote crazy people out of office. And
did it work? Did you vote them out of office?
I sure hope so. We put in the effort. We put in the drive. Anyway, I'm gonna start quoting The Rock. Anyway, so I had some extra boys over at the house so that my children would be occupied. So there was a house full of boys, and there were 4 11-year-olds.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot of 11-year-olds.
That's a lot of 11-year-olds. And I tend to stay up late because Isaac's a night owl and like quality time is his love language. So I like to hang out with him. And then I end up staying up too late because my brain shuts off basically at 10 or 10:30, so I'm like hanging out brain dead. And then I've got to wake up early to get people to school or to get Sammy to school. I didn't have to do that Tuesday, but I woke up early anyway because the sun is up. Yay! So of course by 3 p.m, I'm like, I'm an old lady and I need a nap. So I was like, because if I'm going to keep getting 6 hours of sleep, I need to fit something in somewhere. And I'm trying to obey my body in that way. So I'm laying on the bed like, the boys are fine. I'm just going to lay here in my bed. And I hear this, balls, testicles, my balls, blah, 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 blah. My balls, blah, 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 blah. My testicles, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, listen, I'm all about body positivity.
Mm-hmm.
However, they were not having a conversation about balls. They were just making jokes about their genitals. Okay?
Well, I just have to tell you that I've had great success with walking out into the room and saying, oh, on the topic of testicles, what I remember from your father's balls, your balls are probably XYZ. And if I remember from when I used to change your diaper, if anything hasn't changed since then and just has grown proportionately, yeah, they get really upset. They change the subject. You just have to be consistent and do it every single time.
I am fine with them making jokes about their balls. I think jokes about genitals are funny sometimes. It's just that they were that like 10, 11-year-old humor where like, if you find a thing that you think is funny, you're going to just use it to death until it will never be funny again. Yeah. And that's like, they do, like last week, the funny word to Sam was sus instead of suspicious, just sus. And like,
he just started saying sus. He hasn't said sussy yet. Consider yourself lucky.
Oh God.
I mean, mine are old enough to vote and they own their own cars and drive. And I went through the sussy phase, like, I don't know, it had to be 2020. Yeah. When I started saying it, because, things enter your brain when you hear them over and over again, and then they come out of your mouth, because that's how language works. And when I started saying it, oh, yeah.
Did you cringe yourself?
Well, they certainly cringed and stopped using it, but that time I hadn't done it on purpose. It's kind of like when the old woman in the house starts saying the word isn't cool anymore.
Word. Yeah, I would love it if that would work. I don't think I can bring myself to say this week. The word for some reason is hamburger.
Okay, so I just remembered the other thing that Sam would say all the time, my Sam, who was 18 at the time.
I still think it's funny that we both have a Sam.
It is, yeah, it is. It was sussy balls. It was the combination of both of your Sam's words, sussy balls. That's sussy balls.
Why?
I don't know, because it was on the screen of the phone, the videos on the phone. Oh, look at my cute little cat. Isn't he the cutest?
Oh, he's so cute.
So cute. Sorry, people who aren't on YouTube. You're missing like the most handsome boy ever. Sorry, definitely. I'm interrupting. Let's get back to your week. Oh. Hey, look, at 10 a.m. on Friday mornings, my brain is full of Vyvanse. At 8:54 on Saturday nights, unmedicated Becca, here she is.
I love unmedicated Becca. Unmedicated Becca is great.
So who knows how this week's podcast is going to go. We may never get to part 2 of Frank, do you have your shit together?
Never. Sorry, Frank. Oh my God. Yeah.
So besides boys all over the house talking about balls, you not getting enough sleep, COVID ruining your entire weekend and having to scramble at the last minute to readjust everything, and somehow doing it successfully because you are an amazing mother, human being, woman, the end. You had I don't even know how to put it. There was a tree in your front yard that was standing upright and now it is laying down. Would you like to tell us about that?
I will tell you about that.
Okay.
Okay. Let me just a little preface. Okay, so one of the ways that I work through my shit is I journal it out, and sometimes I will create a ritual or a spell to sort of like release that energy, right? So Saturday morning, I had been journaling out a whole bunch of stuff because I had been trying to like be too controlling in some of my relationships, and I backtracked that to realize it's a long story. So to make it short, I backtracked it to realize I was doing that because there's been a lot going on in my life that has made me terrified. And I, for some reason, never caught the lesson growing up of what to do with your fear.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, the whatever lesson, I don't know what lesson mom and dad tried to teach me, but I didn't get it. What I caught was, you're not allowed to be afraid. Being afraid is for pussies, and you just need it. That's a cowardly thing to do. So you just tamp it down and you shove it underneath and you just get shit done. And so that's what I do, you know, but like, that doesn't make the fear go away. It just means I'm not facing the fear. And then it erupts in different ways that make me ill, you know, mentally or physically, both in this case.
I had a therapist once explain it to me as, and this is before I got sober and learned a lot about fear and how to deal with it. But I was in tears, like snot all over my face in this therapist's office. Like, I forget what he asked me. He was like, well, why do you think you're here? And I was like, because I'm crazy. And he's like, no, not because you're crazy. And I was like, well, then why? And he's like, well, I think it's just that you have a lot of anger, and we're trying to work on better ways to deal with your anger. And I was like, and I forget what I said. And he said, well, here's what I think. He said, I think you have a lot of fear, and people have and back then they only had two ways, right? He's like, I think people, when they're in fear, either experience fight or flight, and you always fight.
Always.
Yeah. And I mean, I think like, you don't fight, but like trying to control means you're trying to prevent ever having to fight, right? Trying to control the relationship means you don't want to have to get to the place where you have to have the fight. So you're trying to avoid the fight or flight, right?
Yeah. And I'm like, and it wasn't even really a two-way relationship. It was just the way I was acting towards this relationship, which had nothing to do with the things that I was afraid of. It's like this side, like a good buddy, but not, you know, not a close buddy, you know, and like nothing to do with anything. And
well, I wanted to fight a security guard today. It doesn't have to be an important person in your life.
I just wanted to, and I wasn't even realizing that control is what I was doing, you know, well,
anyway. Especially if you're being like so well-meaning. Like I still am, but I work really hard to allow my higher power to remove my character defects, right? But they're still theirs, and I just always think like, oh, but they'd get along so well if they just understood where each other were coming from. If I just explained person A to person B, I'm just helping everybody be friends and get along. No, I'm controlling. They can hate each other.
That's
I need to step back.
I was kind of doing that sort of thing, and like doing tarot readings on people to see if I could be helpful, and like, they didn't ask for that. They don't want that. Nobody asked, you know. And I'm like, yeah, but I have this superpower and I can use it. No, Kate, no. Stop. Right. And so like, I was journaling out like the real reasons behind all this shit, and like getting my fear out, and just like crying and snotting. And then I like wrote all the stuff down on pieces of paper and tied it up. And then I put my business card on a piece of paper and tied that up and tied them together. And then I set it on fire, and like I did like all this witchy stuff. And so I felt really great about it, and I moved all this energy, and it felt great. And so for the rest of the day, I had this feeling like all that energy has to go somewhere, but I'm not gonna worry about it.
Nice.
So because even when I do witchy stuff, even though I am being paid in a lot of ways to basically professionally be a witch, I still forget that it is real stuff I'm doing. Like it's real. It's as real as life coaching. It's as real as religion. So it's, you know, there's realness, there's energy being moved. So I didn't really think about it. like the whole rest of the day, I'm tired from all the emotions, but I'm also relieved. And like, I'm just trying to get all this stuff done and like, and also trying to relax simultaneously. and, and it's like the end of the day, and I had let Sammy stay up really late because it was the last day of school and he gets to sleep in on Saturday. Right. Yeah. This was all Friday night. Right. Sorry. Today is Saturday. So yeah. So like,
and I'm sure it feels like a lot more days have happened, but
it does. It feels like this week has been 3 weeks long. So
but this story you're telling me about was last night, like
yes,
24 hours ago.
Last night.
Yeah. Not 3 days ago, like it feels.
No. That was Friday. Friday is last night, less than 24 hours ago. So Sam is here like on my lap, and we're like going through the funny memes that I saved because that's our bedtime thing.
Aww.
And we're cuddling because one of his love language is physical touch to the extreme sometimes. Love it so much most of the time. So we're snuggling. And I hear this like, and like the sound was like, is it really windy all of a sudden? Because it's not been windy all day. I only had like a split second to wonder if it was windy when I heard this whoomp that made the whole house shake like a whoomp. And like the first stupid thing in my mind was like, did Isaac jump?
Isn't it funny what your brain does when it hears something really unexpected and your brain tries to figure out what it is?
Like I was somewhere between, did Isaac jump or because there's a business thing park right behind my big backyard. And so sometimes in the morning you can hear like dumpsters being picked up and moved by trash men or whatever. So that can make a loud noise. But like my other thought was like, a car fell. From where, Kate? From where did a car fall? I don't know. My brain wasn't thinking. I was tired, okay? So like I immediately go, Isaac, because I knew that Isaac was either in the hallway or in the bathroom, off the hallway. He goes, yeah, I heard that too, Mom. I'm gonna go get my flashlight. I'm like, okay. So I get Sam off my lap. I stand up and I look out the window, and my neighbor's already out there with a flashlight. So he was out there when it happened. And I can see like my window looks down on my neighbor's yard and my driveway. And I'm looking and I see leaves, branches that shouldn't be visible from there. Like there are a lot of trees, but not right there. And I'm like, that's weird. So like, what's going on? So I grab my phone and I run outside, and like in my front yard, there are 4 huge oak trees and a big magnolia. Magnolia is the closest one to the house. One of the oak trees, it is twice the size of my house. Okay. Twice the height of my house, at least twice the height of my house, maybe a little more. Okay. And like it had fallen somehow real softly, like gentle as a snowflake, and had fallen. And I think like the branches of the magnolia had like tried to catch it, and like it sort of swooshed down on top of the bushes that are under the magnolia, and it's like farthest highest branches had just like gently caressed the house, like, hey girl, hi. Like it's just
like basically the tree just fell for attention.
Yes,
it just wanted attention.
It just wanted attention, and it like gently like caressed the side of the house as it fell, and it like bumped to when it landed, and I'm like, what the hell? I'm like,
Kate,
it could have fallen in the street. No, it could have fallen and hit Isaac's bedroom or Sammy's bedroom or fallen over my driveway. Maybe. I don't know. I don't do physics, but like
you're not
geometry or something. Like it's a big tree. I don't know. It could have fallen in a dangerous fashion, but it didn't even actually touch the house. It was just over the sidewalk that leads from the driveway to my front door. And I'm trying
my
not to use my
gosh.
front door right now because there's a bird that has built a nest inside my wreath.
Oh, yeah, they like to do that.
Because I'm a goddess and a witch or something, and that's how I roll. But like, so I'm trying not to use that door, and I forget. Every time I forget and I open the door, the little bird's like, ah! I'm like, you know, like it's so funny. And I'm like, there's a bird. Oh yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I'm out, and like Isaac and I are both out there like, what the hell? And right. So yeah. So I sent an email to maintenance last night, and then I sent an email this morning with pictures of the tree.
Right. Which I saw
No.
on Facebook.
Right. And like I sent that, I get no response from maintenance. My house is, I'm renting from a wonderful landlord, but he has everything go through a property management thing.
That probably gave all of their employees the 3-day weekend off, right?
Probably, because nobody called. Nobody still has called. However,
and your tree, like an infant with an ear infection on a Friday night, decided, oh, 3-day weekend? Yes, I will fall down now.
I will fall down now. No one needs to get out of this driveway. No one needs to come up the sidewalk. It's fine. It's fine. You know, this magnolia tree will be fine. It's not getting squished or anything, or the bushes, or, you know, like, and granted, it's not a huge emergency, but like also a little concerned, especially about the other oak trees that were right next, because it looked healthy. Okay. It hadn't been struck by lightning. All of the leaves were looking good, better than the other tree next to it, which I'm now really worried about. So I was like, I don't even know what's wrong. But like, I made the Facebook post the night that it happened. And then in the morning, I added the pictures to the Facebook post. And within an hour of me being awake, my best friend's husband was like, hey, do you need me to come over with chainsaw? And I'm like, maybe. Let me wait on maintenance. And I wait like another hour, and like my friend / landscaping guy, Paul, you've seen me have exchanges with him. We talk, yes. I call him the Wizard of the Green. He's wonderful. He does a great job. He's so nice.
Right. Yeah.
And I like make him muffins and stuff. So he called and he's like, hey, I could come over in like 10 minutes and check it out and just see if I can do anything. And I'm like, 10, really? You're that close? Okay, yeah. So he came over. Anyway, this is really funny because like, I looked out the window and saw his car was here. So I went out the front door, scared the bird, and and standing in my front yard is Paul, my young friend, landscaping guy, and like the two elders of the neighbor. My older neighbors, one's a Vietnam vet, and like the other one's not a whole lot younger than that, and they're both standing there like counseling young Paul.
Oh my gosh.
They're all standing around my tree with their, arms akimbo and like, well, sir, what you got to do here is, you see there's some rot on the river. And I'm like, hi, y'all, what's up? And I love my neighbors, especially my next door neighbor, the Vietnam vet, who has like 3 corn feeders in his backyard to attract deer and cameras set up with night light, like night vision, so that he can see what critters come to the corn feeders at night. He doesn't shoot at them, but he wants. I was
going to say, why is he attracting deer if he's not going to hunt them?
He does hunt them, just not in our backyard.
Oh,
because our backyard is in a city.
Maybe he's just trying to make a positive association with the deer, so that when he's out in the forest hunting, they'll be like, "Hey, that's the guy that fed us all that corn. Let's go say hi." And then he's like, "Pow, pow."
Bless his heart.
He's grooming them.
He's grooming the deer. Yeah. Anyway, Paul ended up getting like halfway through taking care of stuff, and his chainsaw died. And my neighbor, I almost said his name, he came trotting down the hill. He must have heard the chainsaw stop for a while. I don't know. Where was he listening? Was he outside the whole time? I don't know. And he came down, and I came out to see what was going on. And he was already there talking to Paul. He's like, well, listen, I got a real classic, I don't know what it was called, some kind of really old chainsaw that apparently worked great. He's like, and if you're man enough, you can use it. I'm like, And Paul was great. He's like, yeah, I'm always up for a challenge, And then my neighbor then like watches him, and either he felt challenged or he was on a roll or he's just the world's nicest guy. He ended up chopping up the rest of the tree.
Wow.
Oh, and apparently it was rotten on the inside. It was like rotten.
I was gonna say, from the pictures, it looked like where it split apart, it wasn't healthy. It looked like either termites had eaten away at it or it had like rot. I was gonna say it looked really weak in the spot where it split.
It was like
I'm not a tree expert.
Slugs on it.
What'd you say?
It was black and had like slugs on it in some place.
Yeah.
I was like, that doesn't seem healthy to me. I don't know a lot about trees, but that seems not how a tree should be.
Right. That my sum total knowledge that helped me make this assumption was that when I see trees laying down on the floor of the forest when I go hiking, that's what they look like.
I feel like that's some good logic.
Yeah. And so it must have something to do with trees falling down, is that they get mushy and they stop standing up.
So that's been my shit show for the week.
Well, that is quite a shit show, and you have your shit together. And thank you so much for making time in the middle of all this shit to come record so that we can be consistent and keep our content popping up on Mondays. I am so grateful. And I was pricing airplane tickets yesterday to see how quickly I could get to you to take the boys off your hands for the week, or weekend rather.
You're so precious, and that would have been so fun.
But it was to the point, like, it's the car rental. That's the thing. The car rental made it unfeasible. The plane tickets were affordable. The car rental was almost exactly the same price as the plane tickets. And I wasn't going to say, hey, Kate, in the middle of all this shit, can you come like an hour and a half and pick me up at the airport on the other side of Atlanta?
It's a 45-minute drive. I would have come to get you.
Oh, well, when I looked at it, it said an hour and 23 minutes. And I was like, I cannot add that to her schedule. But have no fear. Also, usually when we're podcasting, we get so jazzed up at the end that we just hit leave really quick and then we don't talk again till the next week. We can't do that this week because I have so many things that I need to talk to you about logistically, including my actual trip to Georgia the week of June 22nd. I'm coming unless you tell me not to. I'm going to put the leave in. I'm a Fed, #Fed privilege. They give me tons of leave. I'm going to use it. I'm going to come. I'm going to stay with you, or I'm going to stay close by you, whichever one you prefer. We'll talk about this off the podcast. I need to stop now. But yeah, we need to talk about that. And we need to talk about the collab with Trevin from Seriously Sinister, because if we can record with him next Saturday, if we can do a recording, I'm boring people. So anyway, I'm just going to talk about my shit real quick so we can get to part 2 of Friends.
Yes, please, that's Becca, did you have your shit together this week?
I got my shit together this week, but I feel like in the friend department, I did not have my shit together because my friend Nikki has a lot of anxiety. Nikki is a very, Nikki has lived, we need to have her on the podcast someday if she can feel brave enough to get on here. She says she never can, but maybe we can trick her into it. Maybe I'll have her talk to me and she won't know we're recording her. Because she has quite a story. Because when you hear
necessary,
when you hear the shit that she's been through, you're amazed with what she's doing with her life, right? She's, like the TV show Shameless, that was her childhood, but without all the siblings to, be there for her. Nikki has a lot of anxiety, rightly so. I mean, I'm surprised she doesn't have more anxiety with the life that she's lived. But sometimes when she gets sick, she makes her sickness worse because she's so anxious about what sickness she has, right? And she can really spin out of control. So she's been sick for about 3 weeks, and I've been helping her here and there, but I've been really trying to downplay it because I didn't want it to I didn't want to give her any reason to rev up. And so she's at my house on Tuesday and she asks me to do her cards for her, which is the first time I've done cards for anybody in my life. No, it was the second time I did them for her on Sunday, trying to pep her up. And tarot cards. I did a reading for her on Sunday and I did a reading for her on Tuesday morning. Yeah. I mean,
why didn't you tell me you also do tarot cards?
Well, I don't. I was waiting forever for someone to give me a deck because I thought you had to be gifted your first deck. That's what I had heard somewhere. So finally, Nikki gifted me my first deck and Kate. She gifted me a pack of Jane Austen tarot cards.
Oh my God, I need
all
them.
characters from Jane Austen novels. Right? Can you think of a better pack of tarot cards for me to start with?
Not for you, no. Although I was just gifted a Labyrinth, the movie deck.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, I cannot wait to come down. I don't care.
And we will give each other readings all day.
Yeah, you're gonna be laying there recovering, and I'm gonna be like, do another one, do another one, Kate, do another one, and you're gonna be like, what the heck? I'm recovering. I'm like, no, do another one.
I'm full of oxycodone. I don't know.
So anyway, she's laying on my couch because she can't even sit up for the reading, and she goes off to work, and I didn't hear from her again, and I'm like, you know how, well, I don't know how you're maybe better at this than me, but my ADHD keeps me from doing the thing, like having the thought to do the thing when I'm capable of doing the thing. So like we talked about before, the only time I remember that I need to make a doctor's appointment is when I'm driving or in the shower or in bed at night. Never when I'm sitting down with my phone, able to Google the number and make the appointment, right? So yeah, sort of like that, I kept thinking, I need to check on Nikki. I need to check on Nikki. I need to check on Nikki. Next thing I know, it's Friday morning. And she's texted me, I just got my phone back. I'm in Carroll Hospital room, blah, blah, blah. They took my gallbladder out. She's had a gallbladder infection for 3 weeks and I'm trying to downplay it. I didn't tell her go to the hospital. I am the worst friend in the world. Right?
No, you're not the worst friend in the world. You did what you thought you needed to do.
I feel like the villagers in the story of the boy who cried wolf.
No. You had your reasons, but I went and had it out.
When I found out kind of late at night, I think, because I remembered, like, I looked up visiting hours and they were about to end in 30 minutes, and it takes about 30 minutes to get to the hospital from my house. So I door dashed her a phone charger and a bunch of other stuff I thought she might need last night. And then I ran up there this morning, kept myself from fighting with the security guard, and reminded me that when people are acting like dicks and assholes, it's usually because they're scared and I should meet them with compassion and love. I didn't, but at least I didn't fight with him. So that was a win.
Good job. Well done.
And, I brought her home and I set her up and I went back after my hike and I brought her food. So I'm feeling like I got a long way to go to make it up to her, but I'm getting practice to take care of you after your operation by taking care of Nikki after her operation. So I'll be in peak caregiver condition when you see me at the end of June. So
I have every confidence. But most of the caregiving will involve us sitting around watching Anne of Green Gables and Practical Magic.
Oh my God, yes. Oh yes, we get to watch Practical Magic together.
Yeah! I'm so excited. It's one of my favorite movies.
Maybe if we ever get viewers, we could record that, and when we get like actual viewers and listeners, we can offer that as like a Patreon bonus. Like if you join our Patreon, you can watch Practical Magic for the first time with Kate.
That would be so epic. We'll have to just record ourselves doing it, I suppose.
Yeah, we just have to. just in case.
Just in case.
Just in case we want to watch it back the next day.
Oh, we're so crazy.
So yeah, and also I finally just went for a hike because of a lot of reasons, but this isn't Beck, do you have your shit together? It's Frank, do you have your shit together? But I went for a hike today for the first time since 2021.
Oh, and it's so good to take a hike.
And it felt great. And of course I'm grossly out of shape, so I couldn't go as far as usual. And when I got to my favorite spot, I actually there's this little like river area where you can like sort of follow like off the trail, like along the river around a corner, and you don't even feel like you're in the park anymore. You feel like you're in this magical little place, as long as you keep your back to the house that has a property bordering this part. And I like sat there and caught my breath. So it gave me like being out of shape gave me a fun opportunity to
sit with it
and be and play with water and rocks and mud and sticks like a little kid again, which is my favorite reason for hiking. And then both on the way out and on the way back, there was the creepiest noise of a creaking tree about to fall.
Shit, no.
Yes. And on the way back, I saw it and I was like, don't follow me, don't follow me, don't follow me. And I like skittered my way down that trail really quick away from that tree, and it was making eerie creaking noises. Like it was like over, and you could tell it was a tree that needed to fall because it looked pretty dead. It had no leaves on it. And it was like there was this like new tree that was, it was like creak, like the tree was like trying to hold it up, but you could tell like that tree's gonna fall. I hope no one's here when that happens.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So without further ado, previously on Frank, do you have your shit together? You had to run because you had a commitment, and Frank had just gotten to the good part. He had sort of talked about his childhood ideas of what it meant to have your shit together, in that he felt like our parents didn't really give him any idea of what it meant. And he had started to get to his high school experience, and he had just brought up a book by Chris McKinnon, the guy who Into the Wild, he like burned his social security card. Yeah. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce the man behind the magic, the bleeper of names, editor extraordinaire, our producer, Frank.
Yay, Frank!
Hey, what's up?
Hi,
Good to
Frank.
see ya. Sounds like it's been a heck of a week for you, Kate.
It's been a week.
Um,
How's your week been, Frank? Do you have your shit together?
yes, really quick though, I had to look something up because of the way my brain works. You guys were talking about sus, right? Slang.
It has to do with the game Among Us.
My brain goes like, well, why do teens use slang? You know, so
Right,
I
right.
guess it's not that mysterious once you get the answer. It says, for the most part, teens use slang as a way to create their own identity, fit into specific social groups, and express independence.
Ah,
They seek to differentiate themselves from their parents and want to feel unique, free, and even revolutionary. Using slang helps teens do that while also bonding with friends.
wow. I wish I had had that context when my kids were that age, because
Well, but it also explains how when you use the word, it destroys it, because then it's not
yes,
revolutionary and it's not like just their group, if mom's saying it, right?
exactly. It's like the why phase. When they were 4, I knew why they were saying why, and I knew that the appropriate response was, why do you think? Because the reason they were asking why is they had an idea, but they weren't sure if it was right or not, and they wanted to find out. So
Oh.
I don't know what I would have done with that knowledge, but I would have thought about it a little bit and maybe tried to have the appropriate parental response, which probably is what Kate does because she leaves it alone.
Uh, so yeah, playing words. So my week had not as many snafus as yours, Kate, but it was going along fairly well. I was running my last few errands yesterday, and then decided to go, have some fun in reward for that. Chance goes with me on the errands, and he stays in the truck and doesn't whine or bark, and is very well behaved now. So,
What a good boy.
so we hit Wendy's and we got some burgers, and then we're gonna go out to the lake and let him run around. And it's been raining here a lot, like enough that there's a flood warning in Cali County, and that when I was driving over the dam to the lake, I could see it was like up, the water was up in the grass,
Oh, geez.
But I didn't think about that when I was picking where to stop the truck and hang out, right?
Well, it's a
So-
truck. It should be able to drive anywhere.
Exactly. And I've gone through a lot of slippery, hairy situations in that truck before and always been able to get out. But I
And
went.
you're here, so I guess you got out eventually.
No, I'm actually, this is the fake background that Zoom does. I'm actually still in the woods right now. That's what so,
Stuck there forever.
yeah, I'm just gonna. Well,
Man, that's a great Zoom background. I need to get that one.
I was getting mentally prepared for actually being there overnight and maybe being there for a couple days at one point. That
Oh, geez,
The
because
fact
that is
that I
where
got-
you live. You live in a part of the country where if you got stuck in the mud, you could conceivably be stuck for a
plus I
very
don't
long
know
time.
anyone.
Yeah.
Comma, I don't know anyone out here is the other thing. If I was
Right.
similar situation, but in Maryland, I could call Manny or John or Jonathan or Mom, any of these people with trucks that come pull me out. But
Well, but also you don't. Well, I didn't have the best cell signal when I was visiting you. There were plenty of places where if I had gotten stuck, I would have been screwed till someone drove by.
right, and the thing is that it's sometimes a long time since anybody drives by. I mean,
Right,
I was in one of the least occupied areas of the lake, the northeast corner, but it was Memorial Day weekend. And on the way in, I was actually grumbling about how full it was
Huh.
with people. And yet, for the 5 hours I was stuck in the mud, there wasn't a single vehicle that drove by.
Oh my
5
gosh.
You know,
Stuck in the mud for 5
in the
hours?
beginning, it was like, oh God, I hope nobody drives by. This is embarrassing, right? They're going to see me stuck in the mud. By hour 3, it was like, where the hell is everybody? You know,
Yes.
like, have zombies come? Did the human race disappear? You know, I've been here a while. Um, so,
Wow.
but so I didn't have my shit together when it came to choosing the location, obviously, because I got stuck. Like, I even went down this path that was under tree cover, and I've learned after being here long enough that that's like one of the worst places. After a rain, you have to be careful, and then you also have to be careful driving under the tree cover because it's not going to get any sun, so it's not going to dry out.
Mm.
But once I got stuck, um, I had my shit together in terms of, I guess, just the mental game following that, because there wasn't really any complaining, bitching, moaning. A lot of times in the past, if I did something like that where I messed up and got myself into an unfortunate situation, the whole time I'd be working to fix it, I'd be in my head beating myself up about it with all the coulda, shoulda, wouldas. Like, oh, if you had just done this, if you'd have just stopped at that first site that you looked at, you wouldn't be in this mess. And none of that
Mhm.
came up during the experience. And I
That's huge.
pretty early on realized I didn't have anywhere to be, like, for days. So if need be, if I did need to spend the night there, that's fine. I keep, basic supplies in the truck. Um, you know, it was nice weather. It was, the sun was out. It wasn't too hot. Uh, and it was exercise, like, it's hard to get up and out to go exercise, but when a situation like that comes around, there's no, like, procrastinating. It's it's I have to build a road now, so I started
Yeah.
growing sticks and logs and the bark off of logs. I made a nice, like, kind of composite of different materials, layering them with rocks, and then, like, sticks, and then gravel, and then more rock, and
Holy crap.
sand and stuff.
What's the engineering?
Yeah, well, it was fun too because it was like, had to be kind of creative about it with that, like that, right? Like, what types of things can I use? Like, there's a huge field of grass over here that I can grab big, bundles of grass from, which would more than likely soak up some of the water in these ruts that I was in. But at the same time, it doesn't have any grip to it. It's pretty slippery stuff, especially in the
Yeah.
mud, right? But I had every kind of material you could imagine around me. And so it was just a matter of going around. And fortunately, the last errand was I went to Walmart to buy storage bins, like plastic Rubbermaid storage bins for the house. And so I was able to use one of those to collect material. If I didn't have that, it probably wouldn't have been
Oh,
fun,
Wow. Okay, so how come you and I haven't done the Amazing Race yet?
Oh, is that show still on?
I have no idea, but we should have been on it with you being able to do crap like that.
Let's
And
do
me
it.
just always wanting to be on it with nothing to contribute other than I've always wanted to be on it.
your enthusiasm, Becca.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Yeah, I guess the
The
resort
camera loves me.
in the Marine Corps, they say improvise, adapt, and overcome, and creative
Mhm.
solutions and all that stuff. Um, so I built and built and built, but the funny twist to the end of the story is I did eventually have to call for a tow. I had to suck it up, put my independence to the side, because
Wait,
I built this huge road up great, but underneath the wheels, I couldn't get underneath the wheels, and they were down at least maybe 8 or 10 inches into the mud.
Ooh,
you
that's
needed a
lot.
shovel.
Yeah, well, I clear out as much as I could around it. I was pulling mud out and pulling mud and then shoving sand and gravel all in there, and rocks and sticks and stuff. But it needed something to just get it out of that first bump, and then it could ride the road over the rest of the wet, muddy ground up to the grass. But
Okay, but just, I mean, you could have just called for a tow the whole time.
yeah, I could have called for a tow the whole time, but then I wouldn't have had as much fun.
You're right. It wouldn't have been as much fun. I mean, I just wanted to clarify, Kate. I'm not trying to be like horrible. I just wanted to make sure I heard that correctly. Does mom buy you?
You're like, so
The whole time.
you could
Yeah.
have called for a tow truck
So
for
while-
5 hours?
That was obviously one of the first things I thought of is who could I call. And then while I was working on it, I still was going through my head who I could call. And there were only a couple options. There's a guy named Jeremy in town who has a truck that's big, even for Kansas standards, with a big got wood on the window because he goes around and cuts down trees and chops them up.
Oh, okay. That's yeah.
Like a truck that makes people turn their heads, even in Kansas. And usually wanting
It
to
went
make
right
quick
over my
money.
head. Okay, I'm caught up.
So I thought of him, and then there's the nice family that I do work for sometimes. But the thing about, I didn't necessarily want to call them because they're so helpful and generous that they'll say, yes, we can help you even when it's not convenient to them. And then they won't accept any form of compensation. Plus, it
And
even
that's
seems
on
kind of
you.
like a hairy job for them to be going all the way out there
Mm.
to the lake. They do a lot of stuff in town. So eventually, I did call the number I had for Jeremy on my phone, but it wasn't the same number anymore. So that canceled that out. And then the other thing I pondered over is like the lake. Like the lake's got to have something. Like I know probably doesn't happen every day, but people get stuck from time to time. So that's how I got it. Eventually, I Googled the number for the lake office, and the guy
Huh.
said, "No, we don't pull people out. It's a liability." And I'm like, "Dude, I'll sign any piece of paper you want me to sign. I'll pay, tons of money. I've
Yeah.
been at this for a while. I need, someone to get me out of here." And he's like, "Well, we can't, but I'll text you in a minute a number of somebody that can."
Oh,
So
there you go.
they text me this number for this guy Brett. Talked to him. His son Cole got sent out, and I don't know. Maybe I'll like overlay some of the footage here during this little story because
Yes.
I did a time
That'd be
lapse
rad.
while I was building the road, and then I also turned my phone camera on when Cole was actually pulling me out, and he was on his way out, and he said, "Okay, so let me know if you see me drive by. I'm in a white Ford 4x4." And I'm thinking like that's all he's coming in. But I'm like, well, it's surely a big Ford 4x4 jacked up on big like heavy duty high traction tires. Kid shows up and he's just driving a truck with basically as much power as and traction as my truck has. Just a bit like a truck that would blend in on any street and parking lot. You wouldn't think that's a truck that a tow company would send out.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
so, but I thought, all right, well, but he comes from a family of towers, a towing company. He probably knows some good tricks. He basically just came, hooked up the chain, hooked it up to his truck, and then went to drive. And the first time he started, he just was spinning his wheels, and his truck was doing that twisty, turny thing it does when you're spinning the wheels. So then I was
Oh
like,
my
oh
gosh.
crap, we're gonna get two trucks stuck here. And then I'm gonna have to like pay even more money to have a real tow truck come out. He packs up and he tries it again a second time, and again,
What a
same
circus.
thing. My truck isn't budging at all, and I'm thinking I got this like high school kid in this little truck trying to get me out of the woods. This is ridiculous. And then around the time I'm thinking this is ridiculous, I should probably get out and adjust something. I look for it and I can see his hand sticking out of the side of his truck, and he goes like this. By the time he does three fingers, I guess for the listeners, and then he does two fingers. And by the time he does two fingers, I realize, oh, we're gonna have to do something at the same time. I guess hit the gas, right? And then he does one, and he hits the gas like hard, like harder than he did any of the times before, and harder probably than his dad would have told him to. Like he apologized for it later, and I hit my gas at the same time, and we managed to jump up out of there, and he
Wow.
pulled me to the top of the hill. When we got out, he was like,
What a
"Sorry,
circus.
he was like, I hit that harder than I wanted to, but I was like, that's all right, man. You got me out. You know what I mean? Thanks for the help," and paid him. And he said, "I hope the rest of your weekend goes well." And that was the end of it. But
Well, with your permission and Kate's permission, I think I have my photos for Instagram. I think that Kate's tree and your road are going up on Instagram on Monday
okay,
morning to
that'll
promote
work.
this
To be.
episode.
That'll definitely work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's just amazing.
It was
Wow.
fun. And
Story.
I was listening to Chuck Palahniuk this week, and um, he of course wrote Fight Club and a bunch of other successful books. And when he was going to college, he went camping up in the mountains, and there was a group of campers there that were blaring their music like all night long. And he went over to talk to him about it, and he got in a fight with them, and he got his ass beat, and he had to go back to like work on Monday with this mangled face. And the experience of working there for the next like 2 months of his face healing, he said, was wild because nobody would look him in the face. They'd talk to like his neck or his chest. They'd he'd be staring at him, two big black eyes, and they'd be saying, "So what did you do this weekend? Did you have any fun this weekend or something?" And like, and then that experience combined with another experience where somewhere he was at had like a giving tree for the holiday, and the thing he took off said, take somebody with a disease, like a terminal illness, to a support group meeting. And so he started picking people up with terminal diseases and taking them to support group meetings. And he'd always just sit there in the back and not say much. But he realized that made people think that he was the sickest because he was the quietest. And, they'd all come to him with this emotion. And he felt like he couldn't say, "Oh, no, 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 I don't have bowel cancer. That's you guys. I don't," so he just kind of like went along with it. And those two situations kind of came together to be the pretense for Fight Club. So, but the advice he was giving at one point in it,
Fight Club, yeah.
Yeah, right. For Fight Club, I want to do a watching of it with you, Beck, because if anybody who knows about AA or the rooms, you'll get there's a whole secondary experience to watching that movie because they comment explicitly and implicitly. There's all these commentaries on support groups and AA and the models and the lingo and the things they say, and you recognize a lot of the sayings and stuff. But yeah. So the point was, he said in this interview, you can take some of the most unfortunate experiences in your life and turn them into great stories. And so when I was driving away from the lake, I was like, all right, who knows? Maybe someday there will be a story that comes from a guy who got stuck in the lake or something. You know what I mean? Maybe not. Right. Maybe the guy Cole comes and he's like like one of those kind of guys or something, and it goes awry. Who knows? But it's little things like that help, I guess, keep my shit together in those types of experiences.
When you do write the story, make sure that you take note of the fact that it felt easier to build a road than to call someone for help. That was your inner conflict. Like you needed 5 hours to process who to call for help, how to call them, and what to say. Kate, I'm not being mean. You don't have to laugh into a pillow. I completely appreciate the fact of not knowing the people out there being part of why that inner conflict happened, right? Because I rearranged my entire dream living room. Like you've seen it, Frank. You were there. You saw my old living room. You saw all the work I did this past spring to do an entire makeover, all new everything. It was set up perfectly. We talked about the feng shui. You missed it, Kate. But rather than call an HVAC technician to see why my AC didn't work last weekend when it was hot, I rearranged the entire living room into a setup that I'm not even sure I like, to see if maybe it's because the return register was covered. Because it is hard to call people for help when you don't know them. Like if I had like a brother or a friend that I had done favors for that was an HVAC technician, I'd have just called them up and said, "Do you think it's because the register is covered? Should I consider moving the bookcase?" But like actually finding someone, like, it seems simple. Like I should just
did you Google?
I mean, I did Google, could the return register be the issue? It could be. And even
watch any YouTube videos, anything like that?
Well, I mean, even if it isn't the issue, it could cause issues further down the line. Blocking it long term can make your unit break. So I did have to uncover it eventually. Right. Anyway, I'm just saying the lens I go to avoid calling someone for help, I get that conflict. I get it.
But here's the thing. You picked up a phone, which is used for communicating with other human beings, and you Googled a question that was answered by other human beings and watch some YouTube videos that were filmed and explained by other human beings. So if we're going to keep our heads stuck in like the 20th century, we could say that you didn't ask for help. But the reality is that you asked for help the way that is now common to ask for help today.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's like to say, oh, people always on their phones and the internet, their computers or something. Like, I was just thinking this the other day. Like Socrates, if he was alive right now, he would be on the internet all the time. Like that guy was hungry for knowledge. He wouldn't be one of these like Luddites saying, "Oh, the web is over there ruining people's brains. I'm going to be over here in a book." You know what I mean? Well, maybe if he actually complained about books when they came out during his time, but because people wouldn't have to commit things to memory anymore. But because here's the thing, since moving to Kansas, I have learned I'm a more capable human being since moving to Kansas because of the fact of there being less people available to help.
Mm.
So I moved to this town. It's 500 people. Okay, I'm not sure if you know exactly. It's 500 people. We don't even have one single traffic light. The nearest town is 20 minutes away, and that's where you have to go for anything, including like a pizza or a Walmart or a, we have
Yeah.
a gas station, we have a bank, two churches, a bar and grill, city
Did you
hall.
say you have a bar and grill?
Yeah, one
It
of the.
wasn't open when I was there, was it? I did not see that.
It
I'm actually
was,
surprised.
but yeah.
I support your life choices. I just don't understand them.
Oh, they weren't his life choices. They were someone else's life choices, which
Oh,
I'm sure we'll get into when we get to that part of his life.
Yeah, we can get back
He
to
was
that.
being a good father and
So-
following his son.
So the thing is, the AC broke down my first year here. I Googled, I fixed it myself. The heater broke down in the winter. I Googled, I fixed it myself. We talked about this last time. I was away this year. All the pipes in the house froze and cracked over the winter. I came home to cracks all over this house of pipes. Guess what? They're all fixed now. I didn't call a single person. I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I asked the guy at the hardware store questions. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
doesn't it feel badass when you can fix something yourself? I love doing that.
It does, and I realize the difference is on the East Coast, everybody specializes in one single thing, and anytime they need a different thing to happen, they call the guy who specializes in that. Like, you know what I mean? Like the
Mm.
doctor doesn't cut his own grass, the grass cutter doesn't do his own taxes, right? The tax guy doesn't fix his own air conditioning. They all cycle out, and that's probably really good for the economy. But when I came here, I looked around at these people who I don't want to idolize because they definitely have their faults, just like people on the East Coast have their faults and their strengths. But one of the things I like about the folks out here is that they're a lot more resourceful. Like when COVID hit, one of the things I was most thankful for was that I was in Bergen, Kansas, not Baltimore, Maryland, when COVID hit, because far away from any kind of pandemonium or riots or craziness like that, everybody in this town knows how to like shoot a deer, procure their own food. There's farms, there's animals. They know how to skin them. They know how. There's literally oil, like refineries. They're pulling energy out of the ground. They know how to get the food.
They weren't fighting over toilet paper.
No, there was there was like people just doing basically what they always did. Like you wouldn't for the longest time. Was talking about how you wouldn't know that there was a pandemic if you had just been in Burden,
Yeah.
And it didn't have some kind of like rebellious, we're not going to do that kind of spirit to it. It was just like no, it just felt like that was happening on a different planet. So I always say this is a great town for like the zombie apocalypse or something. This is where you want to be.
Or the alien invasion, like in Independence Day, they bombed all the cities and everybody's fleeing the cities to the safety of the middle of nowhere, and you're already there.
Right. It's every house
Advantages.
Every house on the block has numerous weapons in it, and all the people who live in these houses actually know how to use them.
Right.
Walter's uncle was talking to him about taking him to his range that the uncle has in his backyard, and talking to him about how the whole first week of going to the range is weapon safety, which is what happens in the Marine Corps. They don't let you touch the weapon for a long time in the Marine Corps until you've learned the basic things. So I guess that's a bit of a tangent, but the thing that I've liked is that I've become more resourceful and independent. And I do live with it's not a major anxiety in my head. A bigger anxiety in my head is like social stuff. But like when my doctor at Lyons asked me why I wanted to be on less psych meds, I said, well, because if there's like an apocalypse, I'm not going to be able to get my psych meds, and I'd like to be maybe withdrawing off of maybe 3 or 4 things instead of like 10. Right. So I think it's practical to consider those types of things. And so when I think about, okay, I know how to fix a few different things on the truck now. When I moved to Kansas, something broke on the truck. I took it somewhere. But now it's like, okay, I don't know how to do this. Let's see if by the end of the week I know how to do it. By the end of the week, it's like, oh, cool. And it's just from,
Google.
Putting the cat aside for a second and pulling up like the useful information on the phone that's available.
So I had that thought about like my antidepressants. I only need them 1 week out of the month. I get horrible suicidal ideations and depression. It's not even once a month now that my hormones are decreasing, but the days leading up to my period, this is what perimenopause has done for me. I don't have rage filled like violent urges. I just don't want to shower, don't want to live, don't want to do anything, kind of, don't want to be alive. And the antidepressants take the edge off of that, but I have to take them every day. And if I miss even one dose, I get withdrawal the very next morning. I take them at night, the very next morning. And as I was taking it the other night, I had that thought, like, what would I do if suddenly society crumbled and I couldn't get these anymore? That would really suck. Not because my depression would come back, but because the withdrawal is the worst feeling in the world. So we were definitely cut from the same cloth that we both had that thought.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's like,
what is with the three of us that like zombie apocalypse or some kind of apocalypse is a thing that we think, like, that's been on my brain my whole life. Like my whole life, there's always some part of me going, that would be a useful skill to have. Should we have an apocalypse? I should learn that.
I have this really random thing that when I would be on the commuter bus going to work in the morning or in the afternoon home and we'd be stuck in traffic on 295, I'd be looking at the overpasses and like thinking I could build a little fort there if I needed to hold out. That would be a pretty place, right? Like, look, there's a little stream over there for water, and like there's deer over here all the time for food, and then the only thing that I've actually done to prepare is like I got a book that I never read about survival skills just in case I don't learn in time before the apocalypse happens and Google doesn't work anymore.
It's your backup Google.
Yes,
like 3 of those. I do know some survival stuff, but I have more books than knowledge.
So I think that we found your movie, Frank, is that your truck has to get stuck in the mud at the beginning of the apocalypse.
Yeah, that would be a double, because then he has a problem right from the get-go, right, of not even having his basic transportation. Especially the truck could be fully outfitted with everything he needs, but now it's like it's useless because he can't get anywhere with it. When I was in New Jersey, my truck broke down on the way out to New Jersey last year. So for the first few months I was out there, I didn't have a vehicle. And that was something I thought about. I'd picture like, something happened, everybody getting in their cars and fleeing. And it's like, not only did I not have a vehicle, I was in New Jersey. I was nowhere near like my base camp or any family. And so I picture myself like hopping on my bike, going down the highway, you know what I mean? Which in an apocalypse,
you can't just like break somebody's car window and shove a screwdriver in the ignition.
Right? That works, right?
Yeah. I don't know. It works in the movies. I have no idea if it works in real life.
I've not done it. I have looked up how to hotwire a car, but I think a bike, honestly, I've thought about this. A bike, I think, would be one of the best things to have in an apocalypse because it's relatively fast transportation. You can carry a decent amount of stuff on it. It doesn't require any fuel. It's quiet. You know what I mean?
You can weave in and out of the traffic jams that are inevitably going to happen when everyone flees at once.
Right. It's more mobile. I think we all three of us and many other people out there have NAS, like Netflix apocalypse syndrome, which is the fact that if you look at anything, especially Netflix, and you look at the proportion of the crap they're putting out and how much of it is like some kind of doomsday related, it's really bad. I think it's unhealthy for society. And that might be like a little idealistic to say, but even from a more like business standpoint, it's like stupid. Like I'm sick of watching another like, okay, zombies or vampires or aliens or a plague or financial or whatever it is. They've made it all. And so I think
dragons, then it's more interesting.
Dragons would be cool. A dragon apocalypse hasn't happened. That would be a worthwhile.
Well, it did in that one movie. What was it called? Where they were digging in the ground and they hit something and suddenly dragons were everywhere. Do you remember that movie? It didn't do very well, but I really liked it.
Yeah, it was a terrible movie, but I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, it was. And like you couldn't see anything because it was so dark. I think they did that to hide how bad the special effects were of the dragons.
Yeah,
they were actual dragons?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
They were like digging to like, it was either to like make a subway or find oil or like an archaeological dig. I don't remember. And they like cracked open something with dragons in it.
Yeah. And like Matthew McConaughey played this part that was clearly written for Bruce Willis. And he had like shaved his head and clipped his eyelashes and was chewing on a cigar the whole time, trying to look like craggy, and you're like, dude, you're not fooling anyone, pretty boy. Just like someone rubbed more dirt on his face. It wasn't. This is before he started doing real acting. You know what I mean? Like,
yes. Did you find it yet, Frank? I see
Terrible
you
movie.
Googling.
It's not called Rain of Fire, is it?
Yes,
Yes, that's it. Rain of Fire was so bad, and I loved
I'm
it.
gonna have to watch that tonight.
Yeah, I might as well. Have to
Good
watch
one.
that.
All right, just because our podcast is now almost at 90 minutes, I think, I'm just
Oh,
going to
wow.
steer us back to Frank, although we should do a bonus episode where we talk about nothing but movies, because obviously the
think-
three of us.
Obviously.
I think you should poll the audience and ask them, like, give them
Yes.
a vote. Would you guys what do you guys prefer? A like compact, efficient kind of podcast, 1 hour, or are you guys open to?
Well, I think that before we poll the audience, we need to have an audience.
You don't know. We might have an audience in the future. We can't pull them though.
Yeah, you're right. But audience, if you're there, email us at whatever Frank
Kate
puts
and
on this.
Beck together at gmail.com or on Instagram at Kate and Beck.
And
together.
follow, like, and share us on Spotify and
Hit
YouTube.
that subscribe button.
I remembered to say it this week.
So
And Frank actually remembered the words. So Frank, you were in high school. You were feeling a kind of way about society. You had just read the book.
Into the Wild by John
Mhm.
Krakauer, but it is about Chris McCandless,
Gotcha.
who came from a well-to-do family in Virginia and just left it all behind. Basically, he graduated and donated the money in his savings, tens of thousands of dollars, to a world hunger charity, and then hit the road. And he had a lot of adventures. He died in Alaska about 4 or 5 years later. Spoiler, but if you don't know his story yet, you should. Sean Penn made a movie about it. It's a great movie. He started out with a car. Eventually his car got stuck in a flash flood. The sand, it buried it. So he just said, okay, no more car, right? And left it. And then he burnt all his money at a fire in the middle of the desert one night. And he became a leather tramp. A rubber tramp is somebody who travels in a vehicle. A leather tramp is somebody who travels by foot. But he changed his name to Alexander Supertramp and kayak down the Rio Grande and all this stuff. Eventually backpacked up to Alaska to do his big Jack London adventure. That was who he idolized. And he did fairly well for many months, surviving on his own, which to survive a week in the Alaskan wilderness by yourself is pretty amazing. But eventually, when it was time to leave, a combination of two things. One, the river, it was a different season, so the river was higher because the ice was melting. So the river he crossed easily on the way in was now a raging river. So he wasn't able to cross exactly when he wanted to. And then while he was waiting longer, he misidentified some kind of berries and started to get sick. And, his last few notes in his journal, of course, are like, don't cry for me, Argentina, right? It's like, I had a great, great time up here. This is exactly what I want. This is my adventure. But then he died. The bus is up there in Alaska. You can go on tours for it. And this will be the last part of this tangent that I mentioned, which is that I read the book, my family became aware of it from that. And then a few years ago, my mom is on an airplane flying to Utah, and somebody collapsed on the plane, and they say, is there a doctor? No doctor. My mom gets up. She helps out. Everything's fine.
Because she's a nurse.
Because she's a nurse, right? Yeah, she's a nurse. So she goes and she helps out. And then everybody's good. She goes back to her seat, and the lady who had been sitting next to her starts to talk to her and tell her how great that was. That's so, cool that you helped out. And I'd like to share some of this bread that I have with you. It's like, like a kind of like a thank you thing to honor you.
That's so cool.
My mom had some wine and she had bread, so they literally broke bread together. And then as they're talking, my mom's saying, why are you traveling? She said, well, I go around with this bread. Actually, I have this charity that helps with the problem of world hunger. My son was very passionate about that. He ended up dying from starvation in Alaska. And my mom put two and two together, realized she was sitting next to Chris McCandless' mom. So that was pretty wild. So
right?
Like a few degrees of separation there.
Like, why isn't Frank's life a movie yet? And we haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg.
Your life needs to be a movie.
There's some connections there. I don't think it's as cool as Forrest Gump sitting next to John Lennon on the
but
Jack
it
Cavett
happened
show.
in real life
But
and
it
not
happened
just
in
in a
real life.
movie.
Yes, I was on
Which
a
gives
talk
it,
show though. I was on the Jesse Ventura talk show. Um,
yeah, that's true.
yeah. So, yes. So his messages about don't automatically feel like you have to play society's game. Um, do what you want to do. So I dropped out, and part of that was also because I was having problems with school. I felt like frustrated by the social stuff and anxiety not fitting in, all that kind of stuff. So the two came together, and I dropped out. I got a job at the state park, which was great. Um,
Oh, I forgot you worked at Patapsco.
yeah, that was like the way station in between those two events.
I love
Yeah.
Patapsco State Park. We
Patapsco
have
is
school there
cool.
all the time.
Yeah. Well, it's great because you get paid to like go hiking because basically it's like one of the
It'll be
main
amazing.
jobs is go pick up trash, So you grab a bag, you walk the trails,
Ideal.
you know, roll joints in the morning for, load up joints and a cigarette, an extra one or two for the community service kids that are with you, you know what I mean?
Of course.
Which makes it sound like I'm giving drugs to youngsters, but I was like 17 and I'd have these community service guys coming to me. They were like 14 or 15, and they felt like they got the best gig in the world, because walking around the woods, smoking and picking up trash.
Sign me up.
You were a true role model.
Yeah, I guess,
You probably were, though, like in the Uncle Michael sense. You probably were actually a true role model.
Well, I mean, what were they really there for? It wasn't like rape or murder. It was probably delinquency or some graffiti or something that's not really that big an issue.
Right.
My feeling on it. So then things kind of lost track after a while. The shifted from Patapsco to a different job, and then I basically got to a point where I felt like I was floundering, and started to feel not good about that I was going to be an adult now pretty soon, 18 years old, and was working at a deli at that time, R.C. Rogers Deli on Frederick Road in Catonsville, and so I watched Bringing Out the Dead with Nicolas Cage, and I was like, that sounds cool. I'll be an EMT. I'll be a paramedic. So I made an appointment at CCBC, the community college there. It was actually still called BCC at the time. And I had an appointment with a student counselor to figure out what classes to take to become an EMT. And the appointment was at 9 a.m. on September 11th.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, I still have the appointment card with the date and the time on it.
Wow.
So I drove to campus, and campus was being evacuated, and all shut down as everything was being evacuated and shut down, except for a few places that were still open, one of which was the Marine Corps recruiting office. So I went there instead, and who knows, right? How things might have turned out if that one pivot hadn't happened there, but
sliding doors.
Yeah.
Wow.
Talking to the guy there.
Wow.
He started, I didn't join that day, but I started talking to him, and conveniently for him, I worked right down the street at the deli where they would go every day for lunch. So he'd come down and he'd talk up the Marine Corps, and eventually I did testing, and they wanted to stick me with cryptological linguistics, and I said, no, I want infantry. He said, there's a war going on right now. I said, yeah, that's why I'm in the Marine Corps office, not across the hall in the Army office, and that's why I want infantry, not crypto, right? Because 18 and need to prove myself, I guess, or whatever it was, needed a challenge, basically, I felt like.
Needed to break your mother's heart.
Oh, no, maybe subconsciously, Freudianly. But
well, I mean, maybe you didn't need to, but I remember things from what I was hearing from Mom, and man, that poor woman.
Yeah.
He tested the highest thing he could have any job he wants, and he's gonna be on the front lines. Oh my gosh. Oh, that was such a hard time. I mean, for us, right? But you were actually there, so we should have sucked it up and realized it wasn't as hard for us as it was for you.
Yeah, it's fine. Here's the thing. In retrospect, it's not Vietnam. We're not going off to Below where you have tens of thousands of guys die in a single day. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that big a deal to join the military nowadays, for our side, at least, for the Americans. But but also in retrospect, I don't know, maybe it was selfishness or just being clueless. On my list of character defects, I have cluelessness listed there because I think there's sometimes I just totally wasn't thinking about a certain thing that a lot of people would be thinking about. And I wasn't thinking about how it would affect my mom. I
Mm.
don't know. Again, maybe just immaturity and selfishness, but I think part of it that though is the fact that I wasn't paying attention to certain things years before that. I stopped paying attention to, the adults around me and different
Hmm.
things like that. So I was kind of off in my head in different areas. So I joined, and I guess we don't need to tell the entire thing, but I joined, I got out, I had a family, then there wasn't a family, and different stuff over the years.
Wow,
I'm
you
not,
just skipped over a whole lot.
well, I don't
And
know
I
how.
just want to say for people who don't know you, I won't say anything other than
Well, hold
it was
on.
a lot
I'm
of
not sure how
trauma.
much in detail we should go. I'm fine with going into detail, but
Well,
I feel like I've been thinking a lot this past week about the premise of the show, which is do you have your shit together and what that means to me nowadays. And to
okay.
me, it's okay to maybe go, we can tell the story, but to me, I basically realized that I think what it means to me is basically like having my shit together means like some basic logistical things. Number one, right? No handcuffs, no hospitals,
Mhm.
no funerals. That's always nice when there aren't any funerals. And then another
No,
one being
that's boring.
like, all those, I mean, funerals aren't
Okay.
really bad, but, and then the other thing being like my mental well being, my
Mhm.
emotional, spiritual well being, things like that. Like this week to me, my reaction to getting the truck stuck was an indicator to me that I currently have my shit together because it's not always like that. There are
Right.
times where somebody says something wise and I'm yelling at them, and I'm getting in trouble
Mhm.
because I'm using, pejorative language or whatever. And then there's other times where somebody says something and I have my shit together and I'm able to manage through it through the help of like the teachings of 12-step programs, stoicism, Taoism, like all these different kind of philosophies that I've picked up over the years and got different tools from. So,
But I just want to say that we talk about things that impact whether or not we have our shit together. We talk about things we have to overcome to get our shit together. And you glossed over a giant chunk of trauma and tragedy, which is fine. And I just want to point out for context, you have had to overcome what I think people would consider like at least 3 lifetimes worth of trauma and tragedy. And you're only in your 30s. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows that when you're talking about not losing your shit when your truck got stuck in the mud, I want people to know what a big deal that is. That's a big deal. And like, I think you're going to get to that point. I just wanted to make sure because you like, I know you want us to get done recording at a reasonable time, which has probably already passed, but I just want people to know you've been through a lot of shit. You've been
right.
through a lot of shit and you are still here.
Thank
That's
you.
all.
Okay. Right
Yeah.
on. No, I appreciate that. There is context is important. But
Yeah.
for instance, a time I did not have my shit together was when I was new in the town here. There's a family next door. They're great. They were having a party, family party in the house there, and my son Walter, it was his first time playing inside their house. Normally they'd share the yard and play, but he was inside, and I went and checked on him. But I guess I went and checked on him frequently. And I guess maybe when I went and checked on him, I had some sort of intensity going on. I know I was doing some other task in the house, like cleaning quickly or something like that. So I carried some of that energy in. I checked to see how he was. Part of it was making sure he was okay, but it was also that thing of like your kid is at somebody's house, right? So you want to make sure they're behaving and they're not like being rude and eating all the food or something.
Mhm.
And but to me at the time, that's all in retrospect. And me at the time, I didn't think there was anything really weird going on. I was just being polite to check on my kid in their house until the neighbor's mother, this guy's that was next to me, his mom looked at me and kind of said like, why don't you just relax? You
Oh
know,
God.
like, why don't you just relax? You want something to eat? And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good. No, fine. And I left, and I built this huge resentment off that the rest of the night for many days. And I look back now, and I think, well, take somebody else's perspective, right? Taking the other side's perspective is always helpful. Like she might have felt insecure by how much I was checking. She might have thought, this guy really thinks we're a lousy family, like that he's got to come over and check this much. I want to make sure he knows the kid's okay, that he can just relax, and then also, why doesn't he just grab a plate? That's what people in this town normally would do. They wouldn't come and check the kid and then leave. They'd do some socializing. So I get maybe
Yeah.
where she was coming from in a good place, but at the same time, it seemed kind of snide. And then I have beat myself up for it for years, about that. And that's just one example of that type of behavior, um, that that it really stood out, especially when I moved to Burden, because there's no helicoptering here. It's all laissez-faire child rearing, and like the 12-year-old is taking care of the 6-year-old and putting him in timeout because he used a bad word, and like it's actually pretty like efficient and well done. Um, so then you have a guy like me that like the bus, instead of stopping from my house, it stops 4 houses down, and I go like jogging down to catch it at the other bus stop, right? Because like, oh no, he's being dropped off down there, right? Most of the kids walk to school. They're not even riding the bus here, you know. And the bus driver's like, "Don't worry, Frank. I got that issue with your address straightened out." I was like, "Oh yeah, no problem. It wasn't a big deal." He's like, "Well, it's a big deal for me when parents are running down the street to catch the bus." You know. So I saw that. Oh, I'm like running down the street to get the bus. um,
Be like, listen, I'm from Baltimore. Okay.
yeah.
I feel like that should just wrap everything up with a bow.
Yeah, we should make you a
Baltimore.
shirt. Before you moved out there, we should have made you a shirt that said, "I'm from Baltimore." No offense, I'm from Baltimore.
Yeah.
Just let me get
It's
used
a
to it.
lot, you know.
Instead
like,
of a tag that says "Hi, my name is," it'd be "Hi, I'm from," and then fill in
Right.
Baltimore. Yeah.
Right.
they don't have the highest homicide rate in the country anymore. Sorry, Detroit, but you know, there are reasons that we have precautions the way we do.
Mhm.
Right. It's not all just unnecessary silly stuff. You're right. So I was talking with a therapist this past year about it and the insecurity that I have related to those types of things, and spoke on the specific story of going to the party and checking on Walter there a bunch of times, and the individual said something to the effect of, "Well, yeah, but you also have some dead kids, so so there's
Yeah.
that too, and you're not counting that." And I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
right." And so therefore, maybe I do check on my kid a little bit more than most parents, and maybe I'm a little bit more anxious, but also not just because of some ridiculousness, but because of past experiences, and that makes sense. And like,
And
so
I really want to validate that for 1 second, because Mom and I talk all the time about how watching Walter was different than watching any other kid we've ever watched in our entire lives. Feel free to bleep his name out, but I think you've said it a ton of times.
yeah,
Because of that, because we like, not one more kid. Like, this kid needs to, this kid, like, needs to be the survivor of all of Frank's kids that Frank has lost. Like, this kid, I don't know, it just seemed like we were extra careful with him. We were so extra careful with car seats and seatbelts and choking hazards. And oh my God, it was like, I don't know. It just,
I appreciate that very much, honestly. And it's a testament to like secondary trauma. You know what I mean? Like the entire
Yeah.
you lost nephews, she lost grandsons. Like there's it's affected the entire family. And to the Walt man's credit, he has always been very robust and sturdy,
he
and
has
he just has
resilient.
a resilient tenacity to him. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the cool thing. So, which is like the total opposite of how Russell was. Um, so
Yeah.
so there's there's good context and awareness. I think awareness is good to have. Just understand, just realizing like, oh yeah, there's that factor that might be precipitating this type of behavior. Then makes the behavior that much more manageable. Plus, it doesn't add fuel to the fire with the judgment that comes on top of the behavior.
Right.
Um,
Right.
which goes for all different things. You know what I mean? Like having my
And unpacking that helped with not doing all the beating yourself up last night when the truck was stuck in the mud, right? All that
Right.
work you did over the past year.
Yeah, yeah, pretty heavy lifting of acceptance, right?
Mhm.
Reframe something you can cognitively Shakespeare said, nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so, right? So
Mhm.
you could you could get fired, and that could be the worst thing in the world if you think, oh my god, I got fired, this is so embarrassing, how am I going to pay my bills? But if you were like wanting to get out of that cage and finally pursue your dream of, I don't know, writing a book or something, and then that you realize has now freed you to that, the event hasn't changed, right? But the effect has changed. They call it the
Yeah.
ABC model, right? The activating event, the belief that's attached to it, and then the consequential emotion. And it's like how when somebody cuts you off speeding on the highway, and if you just say to yourself, you get real angry, and then you say, "Oh, but it's okay. Maybe they have a pregnant woman in the car," and you relax a little bit. Like that's exactly an
Oh
everyday.
my gosh, that got me through my
Have-
first 3 years of being sober and trying not to have road rage, to the point where the kids would tease me so hard about it and be like, geez, there's like a baby boom. Everybody's having babies, mom.
Yeah, population through the roof. Why? Because she needs it too.
Assume that if people are speeding, they have diarrhea and they're gonna shit in the car. Like, pull over and drop trowel. But a lot of people don't want to do that, and they're just trying to get to a bathroom.
Yes.
Good point. That way we don't have to overpopulate.
Car, you don't want to shit in your car.
Right. So
So yeah,
So, yeah,
so you
I've-
have been you about a year ago started to really work on yourself, and I think what you're saying is that you've really seen that work has led to you having your shit together. I think is not to detract from that, but
yes. I'm not sure how easily you can hear my dog loudly drinking water in the background. Can you hear that?
hi
Yes.
Chansey boy, hi Chance the dog. He's the podcast official mascot.
official
Let him
mascot.
drink all the water he wants.
You'd think he'd been in the desert for 40 days. Man, you got enough?
He
All
has
right.
been in the desert for a significant amount of time to develop thirst. That's what
Like,
40 days
feels
means
like
in the
40
Bible.
days
Kate
to
taught
me.
me that.
I can't tell time. Yeah.
Appropriate long period of time.
So yeah, I was at
Oh,
the VA in Lyons, New Jersey, which is an incredible program. If anybody is a veteran or knows a veteran that would like to maybe get a tune-up and maybe process some things, it's one of the best programs in the country. Um, and I've been there twice before, previously to work on combat-related things, and then this time to work on civilian-related things. Um, because yeah, I guess I joined the Marine Corps, and the next year well, I joined in '02, and then the next year '03 I was in the invasion of Iraq, which we're coming up on next year, the 20-year reunion, um, and it was a different experience. We weren't in country as long as the guys who were there later, but it was a very busy 2 months. There was a battle there that we were in that was pretty big, and and then we came back, and I got married, and then in '04 had my first kid, and then in '05 had my second kid, and then he died, and then in '06 I was medically retired from the Marine Corps, and my wife died by suicide. And then I kind of went into a little tailspin there, and got my things together at an awesome program in Baltimore City called McVet, Maryland Center for Veterans Education and Training. Kick-ass program. It's really strict. You can't have a cell phone or a car or anything like that when you're there, but whatever needs that you have, whether that's counseling or getting your back taxes to make, there was a guy named Maynard who had $70,000 in back taxes owed, and with one phone call, the colonel made that stuff disappear. But it was because Maynard had demonstrated through the roof that he was about starting a new chapter in his life. So that's where I did my first scratching of the surface. I got myself together, but that was really mostly in comparison to how much I had lost it. Leading up to that, I didn't actually do any real deep cleaning and like therapy work. I don't think I could have if I had tried at that point. So,
But that was the first time that you went into the rooms. And if it hadn't been for that, I wouldn't have received my first big book. I wouldn't have known to call you that night or that morning when I woke up with the oh fuck feeling. And I wouldn't have had you to take me to my first meeting. So even I benefited from that program. Even my kids benefited from you being in McVets. So
Yeah.
I now that I have some disposable income, I don't know why I'm not sending some money their way. So I'm glad you brought that program up again.
You can. They do. I think mom has them as one of her annual charities or something. They definitely could use
Mm-hmm.
the help. Yeah, they're doing great work there. And yes, you're right. Sometimes I don't think about that, but that yes, there at that program you had to do a 90 and 90 meetings in 90 days in the beginning, and then after that you had to do at least 5 meetings a week. And they did in-house meetings every night in the chow hall, alternating AA and NA. And and I was the thing that impressed me about the program was that just the change that some of these guys seemed to have been able to make. So you have to consider the demographic you're working with. So it's Baltimore City, and it's a veterans program, and it's in the mid 2000s. So there's still not a lot of Iraq, Afghanistan vets going into treatment yet. Most of the guys are still going over there into Iraq in the first place, or Afghanistan, having their problems develop. So it's mostly Vietnam veterans of the African American community, lower class Baltimore City, guys who have had pretty much like the roughest kind of life that you could get. And yet at this point, when I was getting to know them, they were further along in the process than I was. And they were almost like Buddhas. Like I saw them as like Jedi, like knights almost.
Yeah.
The way they had these like little tricks of the mind that they could play on themselves or on you. There was a guy named Applesauce. They called him that because that's all he could eat because he had lost all his teeth over the years. Yeah, this guy, like, nothing could ruffle his feathers, and he always had a kind word and a wise word. And he gave me the watch off of his wrist because I was late for chow. It was closing, and he's like, "You don't have a watch?" I said, "No, I don't have a watch." He's like, "You need a watch. Otherwise you're gonna get real hungry around here." He gave me the watch off of his wrist. So that was the real impressive thing about the program. So, as I've said over the years, the program's great. I think anybody could benefit from it. The only problem with it is the fact that you can't drink. But if other than that, it's a great program. Because it's about becoming accountable and trying to become a better person, and acceptance and healing. Cleaning up wreckage from the past and trying to help others
and I think the biggest thing that people don't understand is it's about looking at how fear does not serve you in any way whatsoever and letting fear go, and just not letting fear be a part of your life unless, like, there's a grizzly bear standing in front of you. Then it's appropriate to feel fear, right?
Yes. Yeah, warranted fear versus unwarranted fear. Yeah. And it's funny because everything really does boil down to fear, at least in my experience. When I look at the huge list of character defects and all these, I can narrow down like all these different situations that I regret in my life down to a list of like maybe 20 character defects. And then if I'm less specific, I can narrow it down to maybe 5. But at the end of the day, it all really comes down to fear is really the root kind of thing underneath everything. Yeah.
Fear that I'm not going to get what I need, fear that something that I need is going to be taken away from me, fear that I will be hurt, fear that someone I love will be hurt. It's
Right. And I think for most of human history that kept human beings alive, but nowadays it's not a helpful thing. It's restrictive.
Plus, like I said, we're spiritual infants and we don't know what's good and what's bad. Like your Shakespeare quote, the big book says a line in it about seemingly good and seemingly bad. And a lot of things that I thought were bad actually led to the best stuff in my life. So yeah.
Right. Like the Chinese farmer.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But we can maybe talk about that next time.
Yeah, we will need to talk about that next time because Kate is fading fast. She needs to go to bed. She has a job tomorrow. But Frank, thank you so much. And I think that we're going to have you back to talk again. So be on standby to jump in as a filler whenever we have a guest cancel.
Definitely. But, I can fill the spot.
Yeah. But this has been awesome. And I know a lot of people. Sorry, go ahead, Kate.
Thank you for being so vulnerable with us and sharing experiences.
Yes, and I was going to say, I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this episode, and there's a lot of people I can't wait to send the link to because I know they're going to want to hear it. So,
great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the format to share it, and if it can help anybody, obviously that's terrific. That's what it's all about. Is if it can help somebody else, right? Then that helps change whether or not it's good or bad.
Right.
And I do just enjoy even watching the live taping. Someday these will have to be live and everybody will get the benefit of it. But this is fun.
Yeah, we'll have to do a live episode.
I was supposed to be doing a podcast with some of the guys at Lyons every Saturday called the Dogcast, the Devil Dogcast. But they seem to have other, like one guy just went home, so he has his family on his hands, and the other guy just moved to Columbia, so he's making friends and whatnot. So, and then it's easy for me to just isolate with those excuses. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we can't do it this week because they're not around. But this is awesome. This is really, really a lot of fun. So thanks for including me.
Well, we're just grateful to have your great editing and producing skills. And
yeah, truly.
We'll have to wait until next week to hear the sound that a black hole makes, which I had brought to the table for my brother Frank, who loves stuff like that. But we'll do that next week. So until next week, keep your shit together.
Keep your shit together.